greatest sports debate show on the internet.
I will take my victory lap now because who was the one that was saying the Buffalo Bills window is closed? Oh yeah, that's right. It was me.
Championship rings. Starring Brandon Lewis.
Wait a minute, who's the one that didn't see Brandon Cooks clearly has the ball in his hand, goes down to the ground with one knee on the ground, and then Bethany, they say, it's an interception!
Honestly, I'd rather watch AHL All-Star stuff than the NBA All-Star game. Is a Thursday. It is championship rings, and in a surprising twist, because this guy doesn't really care about hockey at all, but we are starting with gold medal because this is a golden episode of championship rings, because not only did the U.S. women take home the gold medal, but for the first time since 1980, the U.S. men took home the gold medal at the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan and Cortina. And in an interesting twist, whether you call it serendipitous, coincidental, ironic, I'll let you decide that. The final score in both the men's and women's gold medal games was 2-1. They were both in overtime, and both were against our arch nemesis, Canada.
I didn't know that, so thanks for filling me in on that. I was unaware, and thank you for coming in so hot tonight on this 110th episode of Championship Rings. Quick reminder, by the way, that I'm Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon's World. That is Josh Ungar, the host of the Younger to the Max Sports Room Talk Show. I know over the week we have promoted our friend of the show, Jalen Sandvick, to join us. He had a late family emergency. He may or may not make it. I just wanted to get that housekeeping item out of the way. But Josh, you know, I work very hard during the week, as you do. You know, I'm up every morning, as I'm sure you are, mostly before 8 o'clock in the morning. So I don't love to get up on the weekends very early, but I had to wake up. I set my alarm. For the first time ever, really, in the history of my life, I watched the Winter Olympics, and I watched a hockey game on television from start to finish. And I got to say, it was compelling hockey. It was physical hockey. You could feel the intensity and the pressure of the moment. And I thought NBC, from Mike Tirico introducing to Kenny Albert and everybody on the call, did an excellent job. I still think hockey is remotely very hard to watch on television, and it does not mean that I'm going to get involved and interested in the sport. But this is a big moment, and it does show. You know, I've been arguing for months and years on the show that patriotism, arguing this country, may be at its lowest point. It may be dead, and politics aside, damn you. I think the one place that it does still show up in is sports. And I think that it showed. And for the first time since 1980, always on the men's side, we can definitively call ourselves here in the United States of America the best hockey country in the world.
Yeah. And what made this even better is NHL players were actually allowed to be in the Winter Olympics, because that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah, I was told this by a friend the other day, something like they weren't allowed to participate in the 2022 Olympics and the 2018 Olympics because the NHL owners were so scared that they were missing 2 weeks of the season. To me, I never understood that excuse. Like, you guys are rich. Hockey's a rich game. Out of the four major sports, it's clearly the one that's least known and least talked about. You guys are not going to lose thousands and millions of dollars pushing the season back 2 weeks. Go enjoy the world. And, you know, I think this was a tremendous exposure for not only the men, not only the woman, and I don't know if it's going to boost presence in the NHL or not, but what it does is, and I think Mike Tirico said this very eloquently, that while people, out of the four major sports, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, the NHL is clearly on the back burner. Sometimes you just got to sit down and watch hockey, and that's what the Olympics are made for.
Plus, if you watched the Four Nations last year, you saw how intense USA Canada really is. It's not just another game when these two play each other. Like, these players truly, truly care. It's one, I know we're talking about our top 5 rivalries. It's one, when USA plays Canada, it is must-see television.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to classify it because it's not team versus team. It's country versus country. So, like, that rivalry is sort of somewhat already built in. And I was unaware. I had thought that Canada, was the gold standard in hockey and they had won all these gold medals. I was unaware that teams like Russia and other countries have bested Canada for the better part of the last few Winter Olympics as well.
Well, yeah. I think the last 2 Olympics, that's partially because NHL players weren't allowed to be in the Olympics. So that definitely changes the dynamic of everything when it comes to who's playing.
Oh, I didn't think about that. So NHL players for Canada were not allowed in the Olympics at that point either then.
Correct. And
okay.
So, like, with Canada, you've got Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, some of the top stars in the NHL.
Well, Crosby didn't even play in these Olympics.
No, he did, but he suffered an injury, I believe, in the semifinal, where they were actually down 2-0 against Finland, and they had to come back and win that game. So that makes this whole story even more compelling. And it was just such a classic USA Canada game. I had no expectations of it being like a 5-0 type of game or a 6-3 type of game. I fully expected it to be like a 2-1, like we ended up getting, or 3-2, maybe 4-3. They usually play these very tight, down to the wire, physical type of games. It is so much fun to watch. It's why I love the sport of hockey. Like, there's just something about the game of hockey itself. I've tried to make the argument for years. It's the most unpredictable sport of the big four. And I know people have tried to argue with me that Major League Baseball is more unpredictable because pitchers can throw like 9 or 10 different pitches at you. I get it.
I think out of all the 4 major sports, and I guess, if you want to go to soccer as a 5th, you can. But I think that out of all 4 major sports, I'll agree with you in this way. I think hockey and the NHL, if you will, is the hardest sport to build and continue a dynasty.
I'm talking about the actual game itself, though. Like, when
in terms of unpredictability, I think it all depends on talent. I think hockey is right up there with baseball, where it's definitely more of a team sport than an individual sport. But we've seen, stars, obviously, what Wayne Gretzky did back in the day. We've seen what Sidney Crosby's done.
Alex Ovechkin
in Washington. So there's that. And again, I'm not going to pretend to be a hockey expert here, but it is hockey is, to me, like one of those sports where it's like, it's there, but you don't really watch it. And then there's always one big moment a year where you sit down, you watch it, you go, yeah, that's cool. But it's not like oh my God, I have to sit down and watch this type of thing.
See, that's where you and I are completely different, because I have grown up being a hockey fan. I follow the game. I try to watch as many games as I can. I am a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. I have been for most of my life, honestly. I remember watching that 2009 Game 7 Penguins Red Wings at Joe Louis Arena and just being on the edge of my seat, like, what is this? Like,
no, I was on the edge of my seat for the U.S. Canada game, obviously going into overtime. And I will say this, I do like the fact they went to 3-on-3 in overtime. I think it's more offense, it's more urgency. You're on the edge of your seat, especially because it is for a gold medal. There is nothing like the last 5-ish minutes of a hockey game tied score, because you feel like every breakaway chance and you feel like you have so many opportunities to get the puck in that net. But I thought both goalies, by the way, made fantastic saves. It looked like multiple times both teams were going to score right at the end of regulation, and there was either a dust up or a glove save. That's the moment that makes hockey really intense. It's like it happens all of a sudden. It's very similar to baseball, where like, oh, the bases are loaded. It's a 2-2 count. All of a sudden, one swing of the bat, and bam, the game goes from a tie game to a 3-run lead. In hockey, it's like there's not a lot going on, and bam, all of a sudden, here's a breakaway, and the game flips on the change of a skate or the puck.
Yeah. I mean, a good example of what you're referring to in Major League Baseball is like Game 7 of the World Series last year between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, where wasn't it Will Smith that hit the game-tying home run?
Yeah, but that was, and again, my memory is a little fuzzy. I believe that was a solo shot as well, because they had 3 solo shots. I'm talking about like the David Ortiz moment, 2013 against St. Louis, where you have a tie game. That was the year of course, the Boston bombing in Fenway, which I'll always remember Game 6 because it was the bottom of the 8th inning. He hits that bases loaded grand slam, and all of a sudden you go from a tie game to the Red Sox World Series champions.
I think you might actually be referring to the ALCS against the Tigers when Jackson like flipped over the wall.
Yep.
Yeah, I knew what you meant. Don't worry. But
all right, well,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll let you get the last word on this before we move on, because you're the NHL expert on the show.
No, I love this. Connor Hellebuck, the starting goalie for the U.S., he is actually the goaltender for the Winnipeg Jets. He, as you said, he made some unbelievable saves, 41 of them alone in the gold medal game. And some of them, you watch the replay and you're like, how did that puck not go in? And Jordan Binnington.
Wait, did you say he was the goalie for the U.S., but he plays for Winnipeg?
Correct.
That's unique.
Yep. Jordan Binnington, the goalie for Canada, he plays for the St. Louis Blues.
Okay. See, because you said he played for Winnipeg, and it didn't compute in my mind that he was born in the U.S. for a second.
Yes. He plays for the Winnipeg Jets, but he plays for Team USA. They both, like you said, made some unbelievable saves. Just to tie in politics a little bit, during his State of the Union last night, President Trump said Connor Hellebuck will be receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, it's obviously very interesting what's going on in that realmscape, and the men obviously visited and were in the State of the Union. There's been speculation as to whether or not the women are going to go or not, which I do think that is ordered an underrated story that, we have focused the majority of this topic on the men. The woman also won gold, and no one's talking about it.
Yeah. By the way, there's Layla Edwards, who was on that U.S. team. She's from Cleveland Heights.
Yes, you're right.
So, and what's cool is I can now say I saw the gold medal winning team because I was at the rivalry series here in Cleveland where the U.S. played Canada for the women.
Yeah, that is really cool. Let's shift gears now over to the NBA, because You last week on Facebook included me in a post. I thought it was really interesting, so I thought we should talk about it. Where you mentioned that, before the year and sort of midway for the year, the Detroit Pistons have been sort of viewed as this great up and coming team. Not many people believe that they are truly Eastern Conference / NBA Finals contenders. However, I know after last week, you now feel that. So let's go ahead and dive into who we think are the best teams in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. They beat the Oklahoma City Thunder last night. Yes, I understand OKC was not at full strength. I get that.
Well, OKC beat us not at full strength, so that puts even more weight into your argument.
Yes. And at the time when they beat New York, which is why I made the Facebook post that I did, and I tagged my cousin Eli in that post as well, because he's a huge Pistons fan. So shout out to him. But at the time, I'm like, that's a huge win for the Pistons because it means they sweep the Knicks in the regular season series. They're coming off of the All-Star break. They're playing at Madison Square Garden. So I'm like, how are the Pistons going to respond? Again, first game off the All-Star break in New York, nationally televised game. And Detroit just went out there and manhandled the Knicks. Now, it looks like the Knicks aren't quite what everybody thought they were. I'll give them credit for coming back from down 18 against Houston. But then, for the most part, we basically dominated them from start to finish. So I have to say, I understand why you don't feel that way about the Pistons, JB Bickerstaff being one of the primary reasons. And maybe the Pistons don't have a lot of playoff experience. I get that. But at the same time, a lot of the teams that we've seen come out and win championships have experienced some type of heartbreak before they eventually break through. Maybe losing that series last year against the Knicks was the heartbreak the Pistons needed.
Yeah, I almost forgot they made the playoffs last year because that Knicks series, while it was entertaining, you sort of forgot that the Knicks actually beat Detroit in that series because everybody wants to focus on, obviously, Knicks Celtics when Jason Tatum goes down and then Knicks Pacers in that epic Eastern Conference Finals. You mentioned it. Teams like Oklahoma City had gone through, a year or two of getting close and then breaking through. Denver, obviously, with Nikola Jokic. Boston with Tatum and Brown, obviously, went through their playoff struggles before becoming of age. The Pistons, they have almost every ingredient you need to be a champion except for two. They have what we think is a superstar. We don't know yet definitively, though I have an inkling he is in Cade Cunningham. I think they have a budding star on the rise in Jalen Duren, who's not only a terrific scorer, but he rebounds like a fiend. They have other playmakers, Karis LeVert off the bench. They have Tobias Harris as well in there. You got Duncan Robinson, the brother of Amir Thompson and Zor Thompson. There's two ingredients, though, and you mentioned them both, that I don't know if they have yet to win. The first one is, have they had enough playoff experience where they were true favorites? Because last year it was like, yeah, they made the playoffs, but nobody expected them to beat the Knicks. Are they going to be good enough to sort of go from the 6th seed to the 1 seed? Is that enough? And the second thing is, you mentioned it, their head coach, JB Bickerstaff, has never coached as a head coach in a conference final because he always gets out coached, mostly in the first round. And with the Cavs, he found a way to beat Orlando. But then in the second round, he's been mostly worked for his coaching tenure, even before Cleveland, in other places as well. So that's my concern is, the Cavs have been through more wars. The Knicks have been through wars. The Celtics are champions. They're battle-tested. And I think those are the three teams, and I don't think there's another one. Some people are trying to make a case for Philadelphia if Embiid stays healthy. I don't see it. I don't think it's going to happen. But I think those are your 3 contenders for Detroit. And I think all 3 of those teams have more edge in a playoff series right now. If you told me that Detroit's going to play either a Cleveland or the Knicks in the second round,
I wouldn't trust the Knicks right now. I would favor Detroit. And I'm not even saying that because Detroit swept them in the regular season series. It's just because of the way the Knicks are playing. Go back to Tuesday night's game in Cleveland against the Cavs. Karl Anthony Towns only got 5 shots. Brunson and Bridges did not have an offensive rhythm. Whereas Cat, I think, went 5 for 5 on his shot attempts, and they couldn't get him the ball. I don't get it.
Well, what the Cavs do have is they have the advantage where Dean Wade is so versatile, they can put him on Jalen Brunson.
I understand that. But what I'm saying, though, is Cat was the main source of offense for New York. Again, I believe he made all 5 of his shot attempts, if I'm not mistaken. And they couldn't find him, or they weren't giving him the ball, which I did not understand. Now, I'll let you go in 1 second. I do need to put some of the blame for that on Cat, because if you're a big man and you're, playing that well, you got to demand the ball and look to make something happen. So I think for some reason he's a little hesitant to be aggressive. And the other person I have to blame for the state of the New York Knicks right now, Jalen Brunson.
Do you want to elaborate?
Yes. Because Brunson, he gets to New York. He wants all his Villanova boys. So they go and get Josh Hart. But one of the dumbest trades they made, they go and get Mikal Bridges. Fine. But they gave up all of those.
They gave up 5 first-round picks, I believe.
Yes. You know what they could have done if they had those 5 first-round picks? Oh, I don't know. Maybe use 2 or 3 of them and said, hey, Milwaukee, will you give us Giannis if we give you 2 or 3 of these picks?
I mean, if Mikal Bridges went for 5, and I think Rudy Gobert went for 4, and there was another player at the trade deadline that went for 5 or 6 first-round picks. I forget his name, mediocre player. Don't you think Giannis would go for the next 10 years of picks?
Who knows? But do you get what I'm saying now overall?
Yeah, but I mean, they used the picks to get Cat, didn't they? And then they went out and got Bridges with the other picks. So I don't know if they would have had enough to get Giannis. Mikal Bridges has struggled this year in New York. He's not been the same player that he was a year ago, because he was very good for them a year ago. He's the reason why they took the Pacers, in that competitive series there in the ECF. I think a little bit the Knicks are sort of doing what the Cavs have done, which is we're going to turn it on because entering Tuesday night, the Knicks were second in the NBA in defense since the trade deadline. They've been coasting a little bit in the regular season. I think they're still trying to figure things out. But I don't think they're worried as much about, do we get the 3 or do we get the 4 seed? I think they just want to rest up and get ready for the playoffs. And I think it's all about rebounding and toughness. They do have Cat. They do have Mitchell Robinson, who I think is going to have to play more and be healthy and be huge in the rebounding department. I do think watching that game Tuesday night, the Knicks are, outside of those 2 centers I just mentioned, pretty small. I think Detroit could get a good rebounding advantage on them, which is why I think Boston, by the way, acquiring Nikola Vucevic, even though he has not played that well since coming over from Boston, maybe big come playoff time. But all of these teams in the East to me look flawed. They don't look like championship winning teams. They look like they're good teams that can be great on certain nights, but they're not consistently great.
I would say if I had to pick which conference the 2026 NBA champion is coming from, my bet would be on the Western Conference, whether it's
My bet would be on the West easily. I think the 5 best teams are out West.
Yeah.
I think you have Denver, San Antonio, Oklahoma City. I think Minnesota should be up there. And I think 5 is an interesting conversation. Houston, I would say Houston, though I don't know now with the Kevin Durant situation and the burner account if that's going to burn bridges there. So maybe you do elevate a Boston into that 5th spot out east. But Boston, I'm going to be honest with you, and this is just no shot at Jason Tatum, but they're playing so well right now without Jason Tatum. If he does come back, is that going to disrupt their flow?
I'm wondering that same thing, and it feels like him or the Celtics might be rushing this because, all reports I've read are that he's already playing 5-on-5. And it's like,
well, here's the interesting thing. Is he rushing it because he doesn't want Boston to win the title without him? Because we talked about this, over the summer is I think I'm not going to say heater, but one of our biggest points of contention has been the value of Jason Tatum. And I said, this injury is going to tell us what the value of Jason Tatum means to the Celtics. And I think Tatum knows it too, that if they win the championship without him and Jaylen Brown is playing the way he does at an MVP level, it's going to significantly discount what the national media views of Tatum going forward. So I do think he selfishly wants to get himself back. And in his head, he's thinking, please struggle without me.
Yeah. I have to say this. I think if I had a vote for league MVP right now, it would go to number 7 in green.
Yeah,
Jaylen Brown.
It's hard. I've heard people today make the argument for Cade Cunningham, which I think you can certainly make that argument. I think it's been one of the most contentious, not obvious, maybe difficult NBA MVP votes, but we'll get to that sort of more as the season comes down. I look at the East right now. If I had to rank the top 4 teams between the Knicks, the Celtics, the Cavs, and the Pistons, I would rank them as follows. Number 4, I would actually have the New York Knicks because I agree with you. I don't trust them right now. They're playing weird offensively. It feels like they have not made an upgrade, but we'll see. Maybe Mike Brown's a better head coach in the postseason than Tom Thibodeau was. At number 3, I would actually have the Detroit Pistons because I think they're going to face the Cavs or the Knicks in the second round, and I don't think they match up great against either of those 2 teams for reasons I mentioned before. Number 2, I would actually put the Celtics. And this is not a homer thing in me. From what I've watched, from what the Cavs have done when they've gotten James Harden, and I know he hurt his thumb last night, and Evan Mobley's been out because he's not playing back-to-backs, and they barely lost to Milwaukee last night. I get it. But since the James Harden acquisition, when everybody's been healthy, the Cavs have been dominating people mostly from start to finish. They are shooting well from free. Jared Allen looks like a completely different player. Their defense looks like a completely different player. And the additions of Dennis Schroeder, Keon Ellis, and really Tyson coming off the bench instead of starting, where now Dean Wade has been in that starting lineup, has elevated the bench so much to the point where the Cavs bench used to be a weakness, is now a strength. And now you don't need Donovan Mitchell to score you 30, 35 points a night.
Yeah. I have it slightly different. I do agree with you about New York at number 4. Right now, I would have the Cavs at number 3. I want to see them go against Detroit, which we are going to see in 2 of the next 3 games on Friday and Tuesday, which I will most likely be at that Cavs-Pistons game on Tuesday here in Cleveland. And then at number 2, I would have the Boston Celtics. And then at number 1, I do have Detroit. What does scare me, though, is as of right now, we're a half game behind the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference standings. Even with that win on Tuesday, where we pulled into a tie, New York still owns the tiebreaker because they won the first 2 regular season meetings in New York. So they won the regular season series 2-1. But since we're the number 4 seed right now, that would put us in a matchup with the number 5 seed, Toronto Raptors, who we did not beat at all this season. So facing the Raptors in the first round, that would scare me a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a New York Raptors team. To your credit, they have done a better job than I thought they were going to do this year. Brandon Ingram is bringing out of the show and has become, a top 20-ish player in the week. I just think, again, the East is very clearly the 4 best teams. The bottom 4 are not going to make it out of the first round, in my opinion. So I'm more looking at the second round. Who would I rather play, Detroit or Boston? I would rather play Detroit. And for that reason, I'd rather stay the 4 than move up to the 3. And I'd rather let the Knicks play the Celtics. And I think that's a very physical series. Both teams will beat each other up. Boston will probably win the series, but I don't think that they would do it easily. And I think it could set up for a Cavs-Celtics Eastern Conference Finals, which would reignite the rivalry that you said needs to be reignited.
Well, it's still a rivalry. It's still a rivalry. I will always continue to say that. We played the Celtics 6 times in the playoffs since 2008, with each team winning 3. So it is very much so a rivalry. Whether people agree with me on that or not, I don't care. I will continue to say Cavs-Celtics is a rivalry. It's one of my favorites in the NBA. I wish I had included it in my top 5 list last week. I kind of regret not doing that, but whatever.
Well, who are you taking out? Cavs-Pistons?
Yeah, I would take out Cavs-Pistons, honestly. Because that rivalry, it was relevant in the early 2000s. It looks like it could get reignited, but it's not quite there yet. We're going to learn a lot in these next 2 games, though. And honestly, we had this in the rundown, but we decided to take it out. I'm not overall that concerned about the Cavs' loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder on Sunday. Yes?
No, not at all. The Thunder shot incredibly well from 3. The Cavs could have been blown out of that building by 30, and they got back in the game. So
yeah, they basically won the rest of that game, but that game was lost in the first 5 minutes when we were down 30-10 or whatever it was.
And
so,
no one could hit a shot. And by the way, I'm not taking this as a shot at anybody or having any conspiracy theories, but isn't it funny? All of a sudden, James Harden gets to Cleveland and doesn't get the whistle.
I know. And, in terms of last night, okay, we didn't have Harden. We didn't have Mobley. We didn't have Mitchell. I'll give the Cavs
by 2.
Yeah, literally by a fingertip, because if there were a little more time on the clock, that game would have gone to overtime.
I'll be honest. I didn't see 1 second of the game or highlights. I was busy spending 3 hours watching the premiere of Survivor 50. So,
same. I was actually working the Cleveland Monsters game. So there you go.
All right. Well, we got some NFL news to get to. Starting off with, are the Chicago Bears really going to become technically the Indiana Bears?
So have you been following this story at all?
I've been following it since it was announced they're basically going to be moving to Indiana.
Well, now it sounds like Illinois is fighting back. But man, I have so many thoughts on this and feelings. I get it. The New York Jets and the New York Giants, they don't play in New York. They play in New Jersey. The San Francisco 49ers, they don't play in San Francisco. They play in Santa Clara. The Los Angeles Rams and the Los Angeles Chargers, they don't play in LA. They play in Inglewood. So if the Chicago Bears move across the state line to Hammond, Indiana, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Damn it, yes it would. The Chicago Bears belong in Chicago. They do not belong in northern Indiana. The Chicago Bears are one of the most storied teams in NFL history. They are coming off of one of the most magical and best seasons I have ever seen. They got not one, but 2 wins against their arch rivals, the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. Shout out to my guy, Tom Grossi. They've got a great quarterback head coach duo in Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. They very nearly went to the NFC Championship game, took the LA Rams right down to the final seconds, and you're going to pull the rug out from beneath your fans and move across state lines to Indiana? No. Plus, the Bears have countless Hall of Famers: Mike Ditka, Walter Payton, Devin Hester, Brian Urlacher, my personal favorite player all time for the Chicago Bears. No. As an NFL fan, no, I am not okay with this. The Chicago Bears cannot move to Indiana. They need to stay in Chicago. I don't give a damn that the New York Giants and the New York Jets play over in New Jersey. That doesn't matter to me. What does matter is the Chicago Bears staying in Chicago.
Josh, this is a first because I'm speechless. Because I agree with literally everything you said. I have almost nothing else to add. You nailed it perfectly. I think the only thing that I will add is this. The difference between New York and New Jersey is not really, because they both cross each other in bridges. It's kind of basically the same thing. We all kind of accept that as society. Inglewood it's outside of California, but you're not going to call a team the Inglewood Rams. You're going to call them Los Angeles because that's the big city where they're from. Moving a team from clearly downtown Chicago, Illinois to Indiana across state lines, I know it's not the same as in distance, but I guess it kind of be like the Browns moving from Cleveland to Columbus, though a little bit shorter distance. Obviously, you make a case Akron, but it's still in the same state. You get my point. Where this is like moving a team from one well-known state where they have been for years to another well-known state that's basically a college football town. They don't even have a professional football team when they could have a professional football team. I guess that's where I'm coming from. Is if Indiana really wanted to, they could build a stadium. They could have their own, they're a basketball state. They could have their own NFL team. They could have their own NBA team, etc.
Well, they do have the Colts and the Pacers.
That's what I mean. They already have the Colts. It's in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. So why do you feel the need to move the Bears? It almost feels like if you move the Bears there, you need to rename them to the Indiana Bears.
And this just pisses me off. Normally, like relocation, sometimes relocation does bother me. For example, like the Supersonics moving to Oklahoma City, that one really pissed me off. Or like the Chargers moving from San Diego to LA, that one also pissed me off. But like the Raiders moving to Vegas, it bothered me, but not a lot. Because the Raiders, like they have a lot of history in Oakland and stuff, but that stadium was a dump, and like it didn't seem like either side, the city of Oakland or the Raiders, were really trying to make anything work. So I'm like, okay, if the Raiders move, whatever.
So somebody in the comment section, or if you're listening live on Twitter or YouTube, let me know. Because I know with the Brown Stadium situation, the reason why they had to build a dome outside of Cleveland is basically Jimmy Haslam was told, if you put a dome where the current stadium location is, right by the lake, your stadium's going to fall into the lake because the infrastructure cannot handle it, and the infrastructure would take to build a dome down there will cost more than it actually is to build the dome in Brook Park. From my understanding, in Chicago, they can build a dome in downtown Chicago. They just don't want to.
Yeah, they're looking at Arlington Heights, which, as I understand it, the Bears own that property.
Yeah.
And the Bears have been trying to build a stadium in Arlington Heights, and there's a whole litany of political talk. I don't know all the details of it, but it's just like I've heard that even the state of Iowa was trying to lure the Bears away from Chicago. No, it would be like if the Cleveland Browns decide to move to some random city in Michigan.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And still decide to call themselves the Cleveland Browns.
Well, we're going to get to some NFL rule changes, but we're going to tie it into some rule changes that are happening in the UFL because there's actually some major ones that are going down in the UFL. We'll talk about the tush push and that ban in a minute, but one of them, which I think is one of the bigger ones, is not only is it going to be like college football where they're only going to allow 1 foot in bounds instead of 2, but field goals are now worth 4 points if you kick them from 60 yards and over. And not only that, Josh, but if you get past the 50-yard line, even if there's a penalty that pushes you back behind the 50-yard line, you have to go for it or kick a field goal on 4th down. There is no punting.
Yeah. I like these changes for the UFL. It'll be interesting to see if the NFL looks at any of these rule changes and decides to put them in themselves. We've seen the NFL do that. Like the new kickoff rule that the NFL utilizes, that came from the UFL.
Yeah, and you saw it immediately and you go, that works.
Yeah, so I think the NFL will take notice of this. It does seem like the UFL, interestingly, is catching some more energy and steam. So I don't think they're going to become big enough that they're going to rival the NFL or anything like that, because the NFL is an absolute juggernaut. But I do think the UFL could become big enough that like people actually recognize it and it becomes its own entity, if you will.
So I think the NFL should try its hardest to almost buy the UFL, if you will, and turn the UFL into a minor league system like the NFL has with Major League Baseball. I think there's so many talented football players out there on practice squads and things like that, and I don't know how you can fill a team up. But there are guys in the UFL. I mean, look no further than a guy like Brandon Aubrey, Cavante Turpin. The Cowboys are maybe one of the most famous teams for using guys in the UFL that have come from there and have made the National Football League. And these rule changes are mostly to obviously help offense and improve scoring. I will say the idea of a 60-yard field goal plus meaning 4 points, I think it's an interesting concept because if you're down by 4, now it's a real interesting strategy because it's like, well, if I'm at the 50, do I go ahead and kick it now and try to tie the game? Or do I risk, getting down to the 30-yard line or what have you, and then I have to score a touchdown? I can't settle for a field goal. So in that situation, I think it's really going to be interesting to play in the strategy, especially because we've seen Cam Whittle, the kicker for the Jaguars, and Brandon Aubrey be able to hit these long field goals now, and kickers' legs are seemingly getting bigger. I love the fact that they are making coaches, once you get beyond the 50, kick a field goal or go for it. I would go even further and add that unless it is to win the game, once you're inside the red zone, you are not allowed to kick a field goal unless you are literally down by 3 or less to again tie the game or go and win the game with under a minute left. Because I think kicking field goals, let's be honest, outside of 60-yarders, they're boring. And we want to see more offense. And I do think that the inclusion, we didn't even talk about this, the teams can go for it for a 3-point conversion from the 8-yard line after scoring a touchdown is another factor. Or if you have a high-powered offense or you don't trust your defense, maybe you try to get up 9 instead of going up 7 or 8. I find that, again, it's all mathematical. It's all very interesting. I think at a lower level, it works because these guys aren't as skilled as NFL players. You know, the coaches may have been NFL coaches, but they're, you know, retreads in the NFL. They're not as currently up in the rules. Where the NFL has all this talent that I think some of these rule changes would be gimmicky, but I think they work for the UFL.
I'd like to see some of these changes be made in the NFL, but I do want to ask you this. In terms of the 60-plus yard field goal being worth 4 points, do you think that takes some of the offense out of the game? If you get what I mean.
I think it has the potential to. Like I just said, if you're down 4, you know, if you're 3rd and 8 at the 42-yard line or something, the opponent 42, do you bring the field goal unit out there and try to tie the game right there on 3rd or 2nd down? Or do you take the risk of gaining 3 yards and now you have to go for it on 4th down?
Yeah, so that part does concern me, that like there might be a drop off in offense and teams might be a little more conservative. Like, oh, we're in field goal range now. We can get 4 points. Forget trying to move the ball down the field. Let's go for the field goal now when it's like midway through the second quarter or something.
I do wonder if the going for it on 4th down and the 1-foot rule, if that sort of will counter the 60-yard field goal. Because in the NFL, unless you're going to half, you don't see 60-yard field goals.
That part is true. Although they've been more frequent, even like
during this year they have been, but really it's only been Jacksonville and Dallas because they have the kickers that have the legs.
Yeah, Justin Tucker was doing it kind of in his heyday,
but not consistently. Like, you know, it was mostly again the end of half situations.
That part is true, yes. But I do wonder, like with the NFL, if they adopt this rule, would it be the same thing of like, oh, we can get 4 points out of this. Let's take the ball out of our quarterback's hands.
Yeah, good point. Another rule that they have had on is the UFL just said there's going to be no tush push. And isn't it funny that all of a sudden, after last offseason, the whole conversation was, we have to ban the tush push. This play should be illegal. It's going to cause so many injuries. It hasn't yet, but it's going to cause a really big injury. To all of a sudden last year, because of teams either figuring it out or offensive line issues or whatever the issue was, the Eagles were just not as good at it. And now all of a sudden the NFL said, you know what, actually, we don't even care about the play.
Yeah. And you know there's still going to be people who say it should be banned. By the way, it's not surprising that it was the Green Bay Packers who pushed, no pun intended there, but pushed to ban the play.
Well, again, it's also funny. Buffalo voted to ban it, and they run it now more than Philly does.
Yeah. But, you know, the annoying part with that play is officials can't even call it right, though. Whether it, in terms of like the false starts or offsides, like that play is so hard to officiate. So if it had been banned in the NFL, I would have said, okay, I understand that. Like,
Can I add something though? Now that they haven't done it, and now that this year they haven't done it, if they do it in the future, it's going to look wrong that they did it, because to me, they missed their opportunity to do so.
I agree. But, like, is it as aesthetically pleasing to watch for the fans? Maybe not. You know, like I said, is it easy for officials to call? No, because there's going to be a false start on the play, most likely. There's going to be, offside or neutral zone infraction, whatever you want to call it. I get so confused about what the difference is between offside and neutral zone infraction.
So neutral zone infraction is when you jump into the neutral zone, you physically make contact with an offensive lineman or an offensive player. Offside is when you jump over the line of scrimmage and you don't make any contact as the ball is being snapped. That's the difference.
Okay, because sometimes they call one and I'm like, wait, shouldn't it have been the other?
Does that make sense though? It's about if you make contact. So if you jump off sides, if I'm a defensive lineman, if I jump and I make contact with another offensive lineman, that is a neutral zone infraction.
It's one of those gray areas where it almost feels like they're interchangeable, if you will.
Yeah, because the penalty is still the same. It's a 5-yard penalty.
Exactly.
No.
But that's what I'm saying in terms of the play itself. You're most likely going to get one or the other, or like I said, a false start, or we've seen the offense be called for offside on that play.
As a fan of the team that perfected this play, I must say this is my favorite play in the history of football. And
shit, Sherlock.
I'll be honest with you, Josh. Yeah, I said this last year when they were trying to ban it, and they did not get banned by 2 votes. Yeah, I would like us to for one drive. I don't even care if it's in a preseason. Can we run this play all the way down the field? I think it is aesthetically pleasing. I love watching offensive line play. As a small guy, I like watching teams run the football, pound the football, and try to block and win the line of scrimmage, because that's what football games come down to. I think it's fascinating watching Josh Allen Bob Sweat over the line 6 times a game. I do, because I find it fascinating to watch the defenses try to figure out how to stop it. You got to get low, which is hard to do when the offensive line's always lower. Jumping it and timing the snap never works, because you're going to lose your leverage. And I think the teams that have figured out how to stop it this year figured that out. That the way to stop this play is not to try to time the snap and jump over the top and grab the quarterback. It's to time when the center snaps the ball and you get lower and you push the center back. Because if you do that, if you move the offensive line back, the quarterback has nowhere to go.
See, I think it's aesthetically pleasing to a certain extent, but not when you're running it 7 or 8 times a game. When it's late in the game and you got to have it, yeah, I want to see that play. But when it's 4th and 1, middle of the second quarter, maybe it's 10-7. It doesn't feel like it's
What if it's
crucial.
4th and 1 and I need a yard? I'm going to go to the best play to give me a yard, and I'm going to make you to stop it. Maybe a good analogy would be in baseball, if it's 0-2 and I throw you a fastball right down the plate and it just comes in at 102 and you can't hit it, I'll throw that pitch every time. It's not my fault you can't hit it.
Your point is totally valid, and I'm not totally disagreeing, but it's I appreciate it, but when it gets overdone, I'm okay, I don't care as much.
The NFL is ultimately a television show. And I know Roger Goodell, I thought he had power, and I could be wrong on this, so if I am wrong, I apologize. I believe if he wanted to, he could have flat out just said, no, this play is illegal. I'm outwanting it. I'm banning it.
Yeah, I think you're right on this.
Instead of putting it to a vote, I think he could have said, no, we're not. And to his credit, he didn't. He put it to a vote.
Yeah. It gets confusing with this whole thing. But again, I'm not saying they should ban the play, but I think I'll say it like this. Should the play be banned? No. But I think the amount of times a team is allowed to run it, I think there should be a limit on it.
Okay, so I was wrong. Here's how every rule change works in the NFL. While Goodell can influence the competition committee and lobby owners, ultimate rule changes require a 75% vote from team owners.
Okay. Do you get what I'm saying, though? Like, don't ban the play, but put a limit on how many times you're...
But then you're getting into like video game gimmicky territory where it's like, you might as well say, oh, well, then you can't call, 3 screens in a row. Like, I shouldn't have a limit as to how many play calls I can have in this play a game in real life.
It's like, again, it's like...
If it's in my playbook, I should call it, to make another analogy in basketball, if a 3-point's wide open, I shouldn't have a limit. We talk about the 3-point shot in the NBA all the time and how it needs to change. I don't think there should be a limit on how many threes you take a game.
Yeah, but it's not like you generally call a specific play to get a 3-point shot.
The Warriors and the Celtics, I would beg to argue.
Okay, the Warriors.
Look at their shot charts.
The Warriors, yes. It doesn't feel like the Celtics generally run plays.
Every team's changing, but nonetheless, speaking of basketball, we talked about this last week about college basketball. This is going to be one of the biggest weekends of the regular season in a long time in college basketball. It lived up to the hype. Both of these games were fantastic. Arizona went to Houston and pretty much outplayed them the whole game. Duke played Michigan in a fantastic neutral site game. Duke ends up winning by 3 in Washington, D.C. I watched both of these games, and my biggest takeaway is both these teams should probably be, if not 4 number 1 seed, maybe 3 number 1. Maybe Arizona is the number 2. I think Arizona may be the deepest team in college basketball. They're tough. They're relentless. They play good defense. They can shoot the free. I was most impressed of all 4 teams by the team that going into this game had lost 2 in a row, was ranked number 4, the least out of all these teams. And my takeaway was them and Duke can beat anybody on any given night.
See, for me, it's Houston because they've now lost 3 in a row. They might actually their losing streak might be at 4 because they lost at Kansas, which Kansas plays at Arizona on Saturday. That's gonna be a great.
And what's going on with Kansas and Peterson? We have no idea.
That's a whole another story. I don't know what is going on with that, but like Kansas already beat Arizona in Kansas this season. So this is the rematch. This time they're playing in Arizona. Arizona's going to have payback on their mind. It's going to be a fantastic matchup. As for Michigan,
Houston has lost 3 in a row. I just want to make sure that they lost to Iowa State, they lost to Arizona, and then to your point, they lost to Kansas.
Okay. Which that was a great bounce back win for Kansas because they had lost at home to Cincinnati in a really bizarre game, which Kansas did not look right. The Big 12 is easily the best conference in college basketball this season.
It's weird. They sort of dissipated from college football and they put all their money into basketball.
It does. Honestly, like, you can make an argument about whether the SEC or the Big 10 are the true power conference in college football. I don't think you're wrong either way. But in college basketball, I think you have to say the Big 12 is the power conference.
Well, I'll say this. I think the Big 10 is the best conference in college football now, and I don't think it's debatable. But in terms of college basketball, I think you could make a case for like the Big East. But I think overall, in general, the deeper conference is the Big 12.
Yeah.
I am out here on record. March Madness now for a couple weeks, and I've been trying to watch college basketball every night, starting to get the feel for the tournament. I think this year we're going to have the least amount of upsets we've had in the history of the tournament. I think this could be one of the most chalkiest tournaments. When we look at this bracket, I think these 4 teams, Illinois, Kansas, if they get Peterson back, I think those are your 6 teams that could win the national championship.
Don't forget about UConn.
Yeah, I mean, they're good. I don't know if they have the defense to knock off any of these teams on this graphic here. Besides maybe Michigan, because Michigan's a streaky team. That's the thing about Michigan. They can score, and then there's where they can put up 80 or 90, and there's some nights where they're in the 60s and 70s.
You know, it's interesting. You didn't mention any teams from the SEC, even though, like, the Florida Gators are the defending national champions.
Yeah, and I know some people like Alabama as well. Again, I think they're a good team. I don't think they have the talent. Like, I mean, Duke's got 2 top 5 players. You know, I see Duke, I see Boozer, and I see the other kid, the forward. I'm forgetting his name, but I think it's AJ Kanitska or something. I forget how to pronounce his name, but
I don't know.
Those 2 guys are just fantastic.
Yeah. And with the SEC, you also have Kentucky, but they're down somewhat this year. You've got Tennessee. I have to include them. They're usually a factor. Arkansas is in the mix. It does feel like the SEC has some contenders, but not at the level of the Big 12. And in the ACC, it's primarily Duke. I want to include North Carolina.
Miami, Florida's a really good team this year.
Yeah. I want to include North Carolina, but they lost Caleb Wilson for a while.
Yeah.
So they fell off. Although that was an amazing.
They had their doors blown off by 20 by somebody the other night. I don't remember who.
Virginia's still in the mix, but it does feel like the national champion is going to be like UConn or Kansas or one of these 4 teams. If I had to say who the favorite is right now, I would probably say it's Duke.
Oh, NC State. They lost to NC State 82-58. North Carolina did.
Okay. So, but if I had, like I said, I would say these 4 are true championship contenders. Kansas, UConn, those are the teams I would say. And of those, I would say the team I would pick right now is Duke.
Well, obviously, I know March 15th is the selection show. March 17th is the first 4, and then March 19th is the official start. So we are just under 3 weeks away from the official start of the greatest 3 weeks in basketball, I would argue, even of the whole year, the NCAA tournament. It is time, though, to get into the topic that we probably debate the most on this show. We are called championship rings for a reason, because we get in a ring and we talk wrestling. And there is a PLE going down this weekend with the Elimination Chamber, but I do want to start off by talking about it was official on Monday Night Raw that he is not leaving to go to another promotion. This was not a gimmick or character act that he was losing the guns at the Royal Rumble. AJ Styles left his ring jacket, he left his gloves in the middle of the ring, and he is now not only officially retired, but he is entering the WWE Hall of Fame in April.
The only thing I didn't like about it is that, like, at the beginning of the show, you had Michael Cole and Corey Graves in the ring talking about it. Gunther comes out and cuts a whole promo, which I loved that promo, by the way. And I was hoping Gunther would come back out during the AJ segment, in which you knew it was going to close the show. But I was hoping Gunther would come out and say something to kind of just stir the pot again. Like, not to insinuate that the feud was going to continue or that the retirement wasn't real or anything like that, but just to kind of continue to poke the bear a little bit. You get
Well,
what I
well,
mean?
that's why I don't think you do it. No, I actually completely disagree with you. I love the way they did it. You do the Gunther heat at the start of the show. You have Gunther come out, you talk about this isn't about AJ Styles, this is about me. I'm sick and tired of all these retirements. Why are you rooting for AJ? He's an old man. Then whatever feud you're doing with Dragon Lee or whatever you want to do to get him on television, you have Dragon Lee attack Gunther, but you get Gunther out of the building because this is a real retirement. It's a real ceremony. AJ's family is in the front row. His kids are in the front row. You bring in the freaking Undertaker, for Christ's sake, to celebrate the career of the Phenomenal One over the last 10 years in WWE. And then his, 13-ish plus run in TNA and New Japan Pro Wrestling. They even brought Abyss, Frankie Kazarian. Bobby Roode was shown. He's a backstage producer now in WWE, but the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows were there.
I loved that. The OC was one of my favorite factions in WWE.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't like about the OC was it took away AJ Styles' theme song, which is still, in my opinion, a top 5 theme song maybe ever in WWE.
Easily. I don't know. There was just something about when the OC was together. I'm like, okay, I want to watch this. Like Gallows and Anderson, they're so good as a tag team. And I just thought the way AJ was able to make it work with them.
I think AJ got them more over than I think they did on their own when they were without AJ. That was my take. Maybe you could argue that's WWE booking, but that's my take on it.
And
AJ
that's part of the reason why I liked them so much together was because AJ was able to elevate them. I liked them as a tag team before they linked up with AJ, but you never really got to see Gallows and Anderson a lot. But when they linked up with AJ, it seemed like they had more of a presence. And it was like, oh, Gallows and Anderson, they're actually a good tag team.
So I've been a fan of the Phenomenal One. I think I told you this. Back in my young days, probably 2008, 2009, 2010, I used to watch TNA every single week. That's where I learned about Beer Money and James Storm, Bobby Roode, Sting, Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy. That TNA era, Jeff Jarrett was in there. And AJ was maybe my favorite wrestler. So I always loved AJ Styles. And the one thing that you could say about AJ is this. No, he was truly phenomenal. Outside of Shawn Michaels, maybe the best in-ring worker of all time. He can literally do anything. He can have a match with Shane McMahon and tear the freaking house down. He can be a world champion. He can be a U.S. champion, Intercontinental Tag Team champion. Rivalries with Kevin Owens and John Cena and Sami Zayn and Jeff Hardy. I'll never forget the match he had with Daniel Bryan in the middle of the pandemic that was 40 minutes in front of glass in the Performance Center for the Intercontinental Championship. To this day, it's one of my favorite matches in the history of SmackDown because of the performance those two put on. AJ never had a bad match. Would I have won for him and The Undertaker to go one-on-one, not in a boneyard match because of the pandemic? Yes. And AJ's body over the last few years has been breaking down a lot. It sort of betrayed him. I would argue he wasn't as much of a high flyer as he was 3, 4, 5 years ago, but he could still do the little things. He could cut a promo. He could be a babyface, and he could be a heel the next minute.
I liked him better. I liked him better as a heel overall. That's part of the reason why, for me, his feud with LA Knight is one of my 3 favorites for him all time. Like
all time. That's high praise.
My 3 favorite AJ Styles feuds overall. Number 1 is AJ versus Randy at WrestleMania 35.
Wait, that's your all-time favorite AJ Styles feud?
Yes, easily. And that's partially because I'm a huge Randy Orton fan as well. I think Randy is the GOAT, not John Cena. Mr. RKO is the GOAT, not Cena. No, you will not change my mind on that. although I will hear your argument. But just the way that feud started, it was like, it started out as like friendly competition of comparing resumes, but then the promos they started cutting on each other, like talking about their past, and Randy bringing up the fact that AJ came from the Indies, and like you guys never ripped anybody off, and he did this sign. And I'm like, this is great. I love this. And I absolutely loved their match at Mania 35. Like, you never see anybody kick out of the RKO, and AJ did. So it was just awesome. It's just, no pun intended, but it was phenomenal. And then my number 2 favorite WrestleMania feud of all time for AJ is WrestleMania 40 against LA Knight.
Well, I wasn't calling WrestleMania feuds. I was just talking about feuds in general.
I'm talking about WrestleMania feuds specifically.
Oh, okay. My favorite feud of his all time is easily the John Cena feud. It's a feud and I'm talking about the early one in 2016 that led to where I still think is maybe the greatest match I've ever seen. Cena and AJ at the Royal Rumble in 2017.
Oh, I thought you were going to reference the SummerSlam match.
No, I thought the Rumble match was better, and they almost topped it at Crown Jewel this year. And what's funny about that, I don't know if you heard, Cena was on a podcast recently, and AJ had told him, hey, I'm going to retire at the Rumble. And Cena said, he's not getting a farewell tour like me. Well, I'm going to give him a farewell tour here in Australia. And that's how they came up with the match at Crown Jewel.
Yeah. But I will say this, Mania 35, that's my favorite AJ feud of all time. And that's easily, I will say that.
Let me ask you a quick question, because I know we got to move on and talk a little bit about the chamber here. Do you think AJ headlines this 2026 class, or is it going to be Steph?
I would think it's going to be AJ. By the way, I know there's a lot of criticism about why is AJ going in the Hall of Fame, but not Cena. Don't worry. John Cena will go in next year. It's really not a big deal.
But wait, oh my God, does this mean John Cena's not a first ballot Hall of Famer?
It does, I guess.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yes, I do. By the way, can I just say this? I love that, like, we get people going into the WWE Hall of Fame. I love it. AJ's one of my all-time favorites. If I were to make just a WWE Mount Rushmore, he would for sure be on it alongside Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton. That would be my WWE Mount Rushmore.
Oh, that's your WWE Mount Rushmore. Not The Undertaker, not Stone Cold, not John Cena, not The Rock, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins. Okay. That is a conversation I don't want to argue with. I think the only thing in history me and you have ever agreed on when it comes to wrestling is that AJ Styles is both one of our favorites.
But my point overall is this. I love that we have Hall of Famers and we can debate who's on the Mount Rushmore and all this and that. I wish there was an actual Hall of Fame museum. I want to, that would be so cool for some of AJ's stuff to be on display for fans like you and me to be able to go and see. Like
WWE and A&E had this show I used to watch back in the day. It was called, I think, like Most Wanted Treasures, where they go and they find these artifacts that collectors have had in their house, like real superstar stuff. I thought it was to build a Hall of Fame. I don't know if COVID stopped that. I don't know if the purchase by TKO stopped that. But I know there was plans for it at one time, and it sounds like it's not happening anymore.
Yeah, I really wish there was a Hall of Fame museum. But unfortunately, now we have to get to the Elimination Chamber. I really don't have an interest in this show at all. I truly don't. The only match that is somewhat interesting to me is AJ Lee against Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Other than that, no. Like, I don't care, I'm saying it. I don't like CM Pinky against Finn Balor. We all know that Pinky, or I'll call him his actual name, CM Punk, is going to retain. Because you're not changing that championship match at WrestleMania. It is going to be Pepsi Phil versus the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns, in the main event of WrestleMania. We all know that's going to happen. I think Dominic Mysterio will turn on Finn. That sets up that WrestleMania feud.
Well, wait. I got to address that real quick, because here's my question, because I've been thinking about this out loud. If they're going to go with Liv versus Stephanie Valkyrie for the Women's World Championship,
that was made official on Raw.
Yes, which is clearly the direction. Can you still turn the Judgment Day without turning Liv and Raquel? Because I'm wondering now, are you going to wait till after WrestleMania to do the whole Judgment Day split? Because I don't know how you split Dom and Finn, but then Liv and Raquel are still together. I don't know how that works.
It's going to be confusing, I believe, but I do think WrestleMania will be the end of the Judgment Day. But, you know, like that, do
you think the Judgment Day gets involved here, tries to help Finn, they don't get physical. Maybe there's a referee distraction or whatever off the coup de grace. That's how Finn loses, and then the next night he just attacks the Judgment Day.
I think it wouldn't surprise me if Dom deliberately gets involved and costs Finn the match.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be one way to go about it. So
even though, like, you know, we had that backstage segment where it was like, well, when you guys were out, you didn't help me, but or whatever, or however that promo.
You know what's crazy? We all thought that it was going to be the turn last year when Dom beat Finn for the Intercontinental title. He pinned him in that Fatal 4-Way, then Braun Breaker and Penta at WrestleMania. I thought Dom was going to turn into a massive babyface with Liv Morgan, and now they're going to be the heels.
By the way, that whole segment with Liv bringing out both Jade and Stephanie, that was stupid to me. Like there was no reason for Jade to be there.
You do that because she has to make her choice, right? I mean, they've done that back in the day. I would have I said that's what I would have done if I was them with Roman. I would have had Roman not decide until the Elimination Chamber. I would have wanted for them to have both of Liv and Roman not pick their champions yet, and you have to guess which champion is the Elimination Chamber people are going to fight for. That's just me.
But it's the men's Elimination Chamber where I really don't care, because we all know who is going to win. Oh, I don't know. Corporate Roman? Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Corporate Cody. Can't stand him at all. I am so sick and tired of him being shoved down our throats. And, oh, it's WrestleMania. He has to fight for the championship, or he has to be the champion going into it. No, he does not. He does not. Give him something else. He does not have to be involved in a championship picture going into WrestleMania. I don't care. I don't like you at all, Cody Rhodes. I don't. The only thing I like about Cody Rhodes is his entrance music. But even that has been ruined because of all the stupid freaking pyro that goes along with him.
Were you the one that was pushing for Cody to finish his story?
Trust me, looking back, I sincerely regret saying all of that.
Okay, so I didn't get a chance to say this after the Royal Rumble, and I wish I did, and I forgot to say it on the show, so I'm going to say it now. It's not a shot at you at all, I promise. It's a shot at every wrestling fan, including myself. Wrestling fans are the biggest hypocrites on the face of the earth because they will turn on you in 1 second flat. Last year at the Royal Rumble, everybody said, oh my God, John Cena didn't win. I can't believe they gave it to Jey Uso. And then this year they say, why did Roman Reigns win? They never give it to an up-and-coming new star. They never build any stars. They just did the year before in Jey Uso, and he didn't like it. 2 years ago, everybody said, Cody needs to finish his story. I love Cody Rhodes. And now, a year later, and even 2 years later, now going to the WrestleMania 42, everybody's saying, why did they give the belt to Cody? Cody should have never been champion. Oh, he's so boring. How do you guys change your opinion like that on the drop of a dime? And that happens to everybody. Every time some big babyface wins a championship, within 6 months, they wanted to turn heel. Exact thing happened to Seth Rollins in 2019. The exact thing is going to happen to damn near Sami Zayn if he eventually wins a world championship. It's almost happening to Cody now, who's basically a babyface getting booed out by most people. I mean, the crowd the other night on SmackDown completely booed Sami Zayn when he apologized to Cody because I want to see Sami kick Cody's teeth down his throat.
The rumor now is that they're going to do like a fatal 5-way at WrestleMania.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought this up because Josh, you're going to think I'm crazy because I don't have Cody Rhodes winning the Elimination Chamber.
Good. I like this. Tell me more.
I don't have Randy Orton winning the Elimination Chamber.
Okay, I don't like this, but I still want to hear any more anyway.
You know who I have winning the Elimination Chamber?
Whoop that trick?
Whoop that trick.
Oh, I like
that trick because there is going to be all of this interference. Now, I think the Brunson Reed injury, which is unfortunate, I think it's a conversation that we have to have because Cody actually had it on his podcast with Jey Uso about, I think WWE and I think AEW does as well. I think these guys need to wrestle more. I think we need to bring back more house shows. There's too many injuries happening right now in wrestling across the board, and I think a lack of wrestling is because of that. But
from everything I read, by the way, since you brought up Bronson Reed, I just figured I would mention this. From what I've read, they had to completely change the ending of that triple threat match.
Yep.
Because the Masked Man was supposed to get involved along with Logan Paul. Bronson was supposed to win that match, by the way. But from everything I'm reading, it seems like they're having to change everything with the Masked Man now because of this Bronson Reed injury. And
so here's my thought. What if you had LA Knight, Jey Uso start the match? You could have like Trick Williams enter in third, Javon enter in fourth, you have Randy Orton enter in fifth, and you have Cody enter in last, or whatever order you want to do it. Let's say you have Jey Uso trying to run it back and doing his yeet thing, and all of a sudden LA Knight just catches him. BFT, bam, Jey Uso's the first out. You could have Randy Orton deliver, Javon's going for the OG cutter, Randy catches him with an RKO, bam, Javon's out. So you're down to 4 there between Randy Orton, LA Knight, Cody Rhodes, and Trick Williams. I was going to have the Vision come down and try to create a distraction, and that's how Cody beats LA Knight. Maybe you just have Orton deliver an RKO or Cody delivers the Crossroads, LA Knight gets beat clean. So now we're down to 3 people. You're down to Cody, Randy Orton, and Trick Williams. My thought is, what if, let's say, Cody hits the Crossroads on Orton, but Drew McIntyre comes down, he gets in the cage somehow, maybe he has like LA Knights leading the cage, McIntyre gets inside the cage, bam, there is a Claymore to Cody, right?
Well, we've seen that type of spot before. Remember that we saw that with Logan Paul and Seth Rollins.
Yep.
We saw that with AJ Styles flew halfway around the world just so he could beat LA Knight with a chair. Right. That's why that was one of my favorite AJ Styles WrestleMania feuds.
But then,
he flew halfway around the world just to beat him with a chair.
Then what if Jacob Fatu comes down and starts beating up Drew? Cody gets up, he's delirious. Well, what if Fatu takes out Cody Rhodes too? And now McIntyre and Fatu are fighting inside the chamber. Randy Orton tries to get involved. He catches a Claymore kick from McIntyre, whatever the case may be. And by the end, Orton and Cody are both laid out. Trick Williams basically beats them both. Trick Williams wins the chamber because now what you have is Randy Orton got screwed. Cody got screwed. Jacob Fatu still wants Drew. Drew still has a rivalry, obviously, as a champion. Trick Williams won the damn thing, and Trick Williams is feuding with Sami Zayn. You can force Sami Zayn, who still has a rivalry going on with Drew, as well as maybe Cody. What if you put all 6 of them in there? Here's what I would do to main event night 1. You do a 6-person Hell in a Cell with Drew, Randy, Cody, Jacob, Trick Williams, and Sami.
Interesting.
That's how I do it. Now, the most likely scenario is the one you said. Cody's going to win, and they're going to move on, and they're going to do Cody versus Drew, potentially. But to me, if you want to shock, if you want to do something shocking, have Trick Williams win the whole damn thing.
I'm telling you now, if Cody wins the Elimination Chamber, any excitement I have for WrestleMania vanishes into thin air.
I think either way, Cody is walking out of WrestleMania as the undisputed champion. I just don't know if he's going to do it by winning the chamber or not.
God, if that happens, I'm going to be so pissed.
Now, for the woman, and I've said this is why Jade Cargill is probably the
Rhea Ripley. Sorry,
you think they're going to go with Rhea? Because here's my thing: why would you build this entire women's tag team division up and then not have Rhea in that division at WrestleMania?
From all I read, it was supposed to be Bianca versus Jade at Mania 42, but that's obviously not happening. You're not going to do Tiffany Stratton versus Jade. We already have seen that match. I don't need to see it again. I don't need to see it again.
I think you could rebook Tiffy versus Jade. I think you could have Tiffy win.
No, thank you. I'm good.
I think Tiffany is the most logical person. I have Tiffany Stratton winning the Women's Elimination Chamber and regaining the title from Jade because I think that makes the most sense. Rhea winning, unless you were going to run Rhea versus Io for the title, doesn't make any sense. What are you going to do with Io Sky that everybody does this stupid thing, whatever this stupid thing is? What are you going to do with her if Rhea Ripley's in a world title match? Like you might as well have had. Hold on. More sense to have Charlotte be in the chamber or have Alexa face Jade, and you have that dissension going on where the other's jealous and the other has a title match compared to Rhea and Io.
Well, you could do Io versus Julia for the U.S. Championship. Take the tag titles.
Julia needs to be cut. I don't advocate for people to lose their jobs. Julia is the worst wrestler I've ever seen. She has no charisma. She has no personality. She gets no reaction, and she's unsafe in the ring.
Okay, I have to say part of that is the way they have booked that women's U.S. championship. It has been terrible.
Okay, but she has gotten no reaction. She came up on the main roster over a year ago. And Stephanie Valkyrie got a reaction until she became champion, and she hasn't gotten a reaction since. I can't wait till they take the title off her.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not that interested in WrestleMania right now. WWE's going to have to pull something out of their butt to really get me interested. I want to be interested in WrestleMania. I do. Trust me. I'm not saying all this because I'm a bigger AEW fan. I genuinely want to be interested in WrestleMania. But right now, I'm just like,
I will tell you what I will be disappointed in. If WrestleMania becomes Drew versus Cody, Randy versus Aleister Black, Gunther versus Rey Mysterio, that will disappoint me for WrestleMania if that's what we get.
Yeah, I don't want Randy versus Aleister. That feud does nothing for me. Sammy versus Trick, I like that feud. If that's the direction they're going in. The rumor is they're going to do Brock versus LA Knight. No, thank you. Brock.
No, I doubt it. No, they're not going to do that now. Why would they do that now? Brock's issuing an open challenge. So that doesn't make any sense. I think Brock's just going to come out to the ring, and I think Obafemi's making his way out. And I think Obafemi is going to beat Brock Lesnar. It's going to be one of the most major pops of the entire weekend. Oba is going to defeat Brock, and Brock is going to come back as a baby face in a few months and say, maybe I don't have it anymore. I'm looking for one more match. And Gunther comes out. And Brock versus Gunther with Brock's career on the line is your main event for night 2 of SummerSlam.
And hopefully Gunther retires him.
And Gunther will win because it's in Brock's hometown of Minneapolis. Like, I think that's been the plan since Brock came back almost a year ago.
By the way, I love that Gunther has become the career killer. It is just awesome.
I mean, if they ran Gunther versus Randy Orton, that would make me happy. But it seems like Randy's going to be involved in this feud with Drew.
Yeah, that became obvious.
I think, part of me thinks they're so worried that they put themselves in a corner that now every match Gunther has to put somebody's career on the line if they're a legend.
Yeah, I would have loved just career killer versus legend killer. Thank you.
I mean, it could have been, and I was excited for WrestleMania once the Royal Rumble happened, but I admit to you, my excitement's died down a little bit. It could pick right back up though, depending on how this chamber goes down.
I think AJ Lee's gonna win the Intercontinental Championship, even though it's in Chicago? Probably not.
That is a weird one. They're saying she's from Chicago. No, she's not. She's from New Jersey. She lives in Chicago because she's married to Punk.
I don't know, but
I think that's going to end in DQ, and I think that's going to be another WrestleMania match with a stipulation. That's when AJ's going to win the title.
Yeah, or they have Becky win via shenanigans. But honestly, like, that's the only match where I'm like, oh, I'm actually interested. Like, the women's Elimination Chamber, like, there's no way Kiana James is winning. So,
I do like the fact, though, that they are putting these young cats, Kiana, Trick, Siobhan. It would have been very easy to put Charlotte and, Gunther and Brock in the chamber, which would have been star power. I would have been excited, but I want to see what these young kids can do. I have said this before. WWE may be in a downturn right now. From everything I've heard from you and other people, they are really preferring AEW right now. But WWE is also going through a transition period right now of young stars. It's very similar to the transition period they went through in 2002 with John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, Brock. We'll see if these kids can work out, but that is the vibe I'm getting from this current era.
What's going to make me really sad is when Randy Orton announces he's retiring. Because, again, like I said,
yeah,
he is the GOAT. I know he doesn't have as many championships as John Cena, but for me, that doesn't matter.
This year in wrestling, we've got the retirements of AJ Styles. I think we're going to get Edge, sadly, or Adam Copeland. I think we're probably going to get Jericho, though who knows? And Jericho's not going to be in the box because guess what? His contract's still frozen by AEW, reportedly.
We forgot to talk about the mystery crate, which
I don't even know what's going to be in it. I'm excited because I don't know what the hell is going to be in this thing. Is it going to be an object? It's not going to be a superstar, I don't think. Is it going to be an object?
I do. I think it's going to be
a superstar.
Very nice, very evil. Danhausen.
No one knows who that is. That's the problem with that logic. It's got to be someone the casual audience knows. To me, you can't have someone hide behind a box. When they come out, it has to be a pop. It can't be who the hell is that?
I think it's going to be Danhausen.
I think that would be a mistake because I don't even know what the hell the guy looks like. I don't even know who he is.
He had a run in AEW. It was funny. Like, he didn't even really do anything.
That's my point, though, because I've told you this before. Most WWE fans, and you know this, most WWE fans do not watch AEW. Most WWE fans don't even watch NXT, which is why they have to introduce the NXT stars when they come up to the main roster. So if you're going to put a guy in a box, it's got to be like Seth Rollins or somebody, is my take.
Yeah, but we'll see if they change the mask man, because
Maybe
I
it's
thought,
the best man in the box.
honestly, like, but that's what I'm saying is like,
You know,
it feels like
do you want it to be like a segment, or do you want it to be like in the Elimination Chamber? All of a sudden, there's just an explosion as the box opens up.
like, honestly, like, I
What if it's a woman? I mean, what if it's I don't know. What if it's Britt Breaker? Doubt it. Who knows?
like, that's what I'm saying. Like, me personally, I don't really care. Like, it's like
I
right
think
now.
it's gonna end up being like Braun Breaker's head, like a replica of like Braun Breaker's head, or something like that. It's gonna be some object.
Like, do not open until Elimination Chamber in Chicago. Like, oh,
Hey,
let's send it to Smack.
I have always loved these storylines, though. I loved what they did with Austin Theory at Survivor Series a few years ago. Who stole the egg? I like these mystery storylines.
I hated that who stole the egg
Who
story.
stole the egg? I mean, that's a classic right out of Vince McMahon. And as Jim Cornette said this week on his podcast, he told Vince McMahon once, if you have somebody come out of a box, they're automatically over.
Yeah. I do think it's ultimately going to be Jericho, or it's going to be like a countdown clock or something.
I mean, if the rumors are to believe, Jericho is still under AEW contract.
I don't know. That whole thing is so confusing.
He hasn't been on AEW in what, though? Over a year?
Yeah. I think he's on tour with Fozzy, but that tour ends soon, so he would be available for Elimination Chamber.
If it is Jericho, I'm immediately making him a heel and booking him in a match at WrestleMania against LA Knight. That's my feud.
Yeah. I'm disappointed about the lack of follow-up for Powerhouse Hobbs after the Royal Rumble. He
hasn't even been on television since the Rumble.
The only time, from what I've seen, the only time he's been on TV is them showing clips of him on Stephanie McMahon's podcast. Like,
you are correct with that.
Like, put him in a damn match or something.
Maybe it's Powerhouse Hobbs in the box. All right, we got to run. It's been a great show. We went an hour and 37 minutes tonight. That's maybe the record for longest show in Championship Ring history. And we didn't even have that many topics. We just talked a lot in each topic. Thank you guys so much, though, for joining us tonight. We'll be back next week. Like Josh said, I know there's a home game for the Cavs next Tuesday, so we'll probably be doing Thursday again. But thank you for joining us tonight on Championship Rings. We'll see y'all next week. And peace.
Come on out to Rocket Arena this Friday and Saturday. Your Cleveland Monsters are taking on the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. It is the final two games of their current 5-game homestand. We are currently 3-0 after beating the Rochester Americans 4-2 last night in comeback fashion. We trailed 2-0, but we ended up coming back with 4 unanswered. And the Monsters are right in the thick of the North Division standings. They are just a few points behind both Syracuse and Laval. So these are crucial games coming up this weekend against the Penguins. Friday night is emo night. There will be a post-game concert. So come out, watch the Monsters take on the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, AHL affiliate of the Pittsburgh Penguins.